I'm Roger Delbue. I have been at LeCroy now for 16 years. I came from Switzerland. I moved here after a year within the company. I really just moved here for a year and then I ended up staying a little more. Um, I am now right now VP of the product development, oscilloscope product development. So more or less everything that comes out as an oscilloscope from this building is under my engineering control. Um, and What else? I think my career here has been, kind of following the path of an engineer that took a little bit more and a little bit more. Finally, well, I get it all.
Nice. All right, so how much hands-on research and development do you still get to do in your position?
Well, it's funny you are asking. I'm actually still acting as as a design engineer when is needed. I'm still acting as a program manager when is needed, and I certainly put my head in anything that is related to next generation and future developments. Um, in I think I see them all, and I still provide it all to the company. I also provide training to the new troops, and trying to be a role model, evidently, for them, as much as for the company.
Okay, very nice. Now we've seen lots of developments here from Teledyne LeCroy in the last few years. So we've seen a 12-bit scope, we've seen an 8-channel scope, we've seen now again the highest bandwidth scope, 100 gigahertz scope. What's next?
Um, well, the next is a little difficult to talk about, evidently. uh, we certainly have created new avenues, and all those new avenues that we have taken, we are interested to pursue. So, from that aspect, well, we talked about high bandwidth. We certainly don't want to stop where we are. And we talked about 12-bit scopes, and certainly we don't want to stop where we are. So the development really is in some senses to follow our footsteps and keep on working on those directions. As far as new direction, well, I can't quite say.
At least tells us that there is a new direction.
Of
That's
course, there is
good.
always directions. Within the company, we are innovators, so we want to come up with new things and new things that solve problems, which I think is the most important part for our customers.
Speaking of problems, what kind of problems does the oscilloscope industry currently face, and how do you address those?
Um, I think, I would say with time, the oscilloscope has become an instrument that the customer perceive as a voltmeter at every frequency. In other terms, you want to represent information as accurately and as representative of what the real signal is. When I started, we were talking about the bandwidth of the instrument as where it crossed the first time, or maybe even the second time, the 3 dB point, or the last time, let's say that way. Today, there is no story. We have to have a response as pristine as possible, and we are talking about numbers that are somewhat mind-boggling if I think about it with my 15 years old hat. Customer has pushed us. We have pushed the envelope. The competition has done the same, and so. From that aspect, I think there is a great thing from a technology perspective, because with all this competition, we really all have done amazing things, and hopefully we have done better things than the others. But the effort to improve has been tremendous.
Okay, let's talk about foreign assets for a moment here, particular people. You're from Switzerland, I'm from Germany, so lots of foreigners work either in the United States or work outside of the United States for American companies. Do you think the local maker and hacker community that has been growing very strongly over the last few years. Do you think that'll be a game changer and shift those assets back into the United States, or do you think it'll remain the way it is right now?
I think things will change, but I don't think it will be a shift from a globalization to a localization. I think there's going to be still a lot of collaboration, international collaboration. I think if it would happen that way, it would be way too strict and way too tight to the point that somebody actually will win. I think United States is still a good place to do electronics and to do, I guess, work in this domain, in the domain of the oscilloscopes. But I think we need the world to be part of it, and I do believe that. But I do believe that we have to be careful. Oscilloscopes are a sensitive piece of equipment today. There is plenty of regulation that is coming on, and new regulations for import-export that happen every day, and so we have to be very careful.
Okay. What do you recommend for a electronics engineering student that's just getting into studying? What would you say is that one soft skill that would be necessary to get started in a company like Teledyne LeCroy or another big player of that size?
Well, it's an interesting question. I think I'm not sure whether I'm representing everybody, but what I'm looking for in a new person is really a brain. People gotta know something about electronics, and people, in order to know something, they really have to apply in internships. Just going to school is not quite enough.
Right.
But they also have to know their electronics, their basics. Many times we see during interviews people that feels like they know a lot, but by the time you are asking what's a capacitor, they don't quite know. And so those are the concerning things in the industry is the lack of people that are not necessarily generalist, but they remember a little bit of what they did in the past. What I suggest to people, I think, as I said, apply to internship, be part of the industry, learn as much as they can, and be excited about it, what is out there. I mean, the electronic industry today is much more exciting than what it was when I came out of school, and even that at that point was already exciting. So there's just cool stuff out there.
I can tell you're excited about electronics and you really like that. That's very nice to see. And to your capacitor example that you brought, that reminds me of, I talked to an EE student and I just asked him capacitor impedance or reactance, and he immediately fired out the formula 1/2πf. I was like, okay, cool, now complex notation? He looked at me like, what's that?
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. All right, what would you say is the most overlooked feature or attribute of an oscilloscope?
The most overlooked, I think this oscilloscope is an instrument that is capable of so much things today that people don't spend enough time to play with it. Now, granted, it requires some will of spending maybe a little bit of your own time, but I had discussion with some customer where they were using it just kind of as a signal TV. Oscilloscopes today are mindful of information, and I think spending the time to learn how to what are the possibilities and think about what could you do with it is a very important aspect. So that, I think, from a customer perspective. I think from our perspective, the maker of those instruments, we should spend more time thinking about how to provide better information quicker. Sometimes, again, people might not know it because it might be a little complicated to get there. So it's our job to improve that and to help get to the answer faster.
Okay, if somebody wanted to buy their first oscilloscope, let's say a fresh EE student getting out of college or is just in college and wants to buy an oscilloscope, what would be the one attribute that you would tell them to not save on?
Okay, you cut me off. I was ready to do the entrance of saying, yeah, well, you guys buy a LeCroy one, of course.
Pete had the same response.
I don't know. It really depends what the person wants to do with it, and certainly from a hobbyist or somebody that does not have a lot of money, the choice in some sense is extremely vast because there is many manufacturers in that arena. So I'd like to say that if you are buying an instrument just because it's the cheapest on the market, well, buy the cheapest on the market. If you're buying an instrument because you are interested in getting something that is that has the feeling of what you are buying, the feeling of the company that sits behind, you're gonna have to spend a little bit more, and you get into the big players, and at that point you have to choose which one you like the most. In some sense, I think, especially on the lower end, all the oscilloscope will provide the information and the solution, but at a certain point, you gotta try out some of those things and feel what they look like.
It brings up a good point. Many hobbyists complain about that big name oscilloscopes, even in a similar category than cheap brands like the newest Chinese brands, that they have the same qualities, but the Chinese made ones are of course significantly cheaper. But every time I try to explain to them that you're not buying the oscilloscope, you're buying the company that'll pick up the phone and help you with problems. You'll have apps managers that'll help you if you need the help, and you don't get that with those Chinese oscilloscopes. They don't understand that, and they'd rather save the money and then are lost without any support, anything like that on their own.
Yeah, certainly is a problem. I think no matter what instrument we sell, we support it the same way. The number is in the brochure. You just gotta call, and there's somebody at the end of the line. I had calls with China. It's not fun to try to communicate there. So I think again, you're buying something that has a certain level of service. Not to say that the Chinese don't have any service. I don't want to say anything about that, but it's certainly an extra hurdle that you have to pass.
Okay, very good. Well, that's all the questions. So thank you very much for talking to us.
Well, thank you to having me, and good luck.